Hey everybody, Builder Guy here, and welcome back to the channel. Now, in today's video, I want to talk to you about Mork Borg, or Mork Borg, or Mork Borg. I say Mork Borg because I'm German, and the umlaut works for me. But before I get into what I want to talk to you about Mork Borg today is, if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing if you enjoy my content, and there are also ways to support my work on Patreon. Buy me the coffee. Buy me the coffee. I actually do need a coffee. Anyway, down in the description below. But today I want to talk about specifically Mork Borg. And this is an awesome game. It's a lot of fun, but I'll get into the butt in a second, but I'm not going to do a review of Mork Borg. There are plenty of reviews out there. It's been out for quite a while. It is definitely a game I wanted to have in my library and collection because, one, this book is just awesome. I absolutely love the art and, design behind it as kind of a piece of RPG art. The tactile, the feel of this thing, man, it just feels awesome. If you haven't ordered it yet, definitely get it. It has spawned so many great games. Pirate Borg, being Cyborg, be another one. Pirate Borg specifically, that I think actually takes Mork Borg and makes it better. Because there are a few little things about this game that I say it's fun, but one of the buts, of course, being the layout, while awesome and looks great, it's a little hard to use at the table. Now they do have summaries in the back that you're able to use and kind of tie it all together. And they do have an index, which a lot of bigger games do not have. But it's a little hard at the table at times as a reference. But it's a lot of fun. It's awesome. The one thing I'm going to say about why it's fun, but having run it a few times, played it a few times, I have an observation with Mork Borg that is similar to my observation with DCC, specifically DCC Funnels, in that it's a very deadly game, okay? And Mork Borg, on top of it, has a setting in it. There's a baked-in setting here. And the setting is very, very, I'm not going to say nihilistic, but it's very dark, and forlorn and without hope. Now, I try to interject hope and say that what people believe is not actually true, but still, the assumption a lot of players have going into this is, why do I care? He's going to die anyway. It's a wretch, and life sucks. With DCC, I encountered this specifically in Funnels. Of course, you're meant to die, but it becomes kind of a gonzo joke that, haha, he died, oh well. And while I believe in lethality, I love old school D&D and old school games, and play games also like Hornmaster and RuneQuest, where, death is very, very much on the cards at any time, in very horrible ways. Same with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. But you still need to play in a way that you're trying not necessarily to die. And what you get here is a lot of, I'm going to call it chaos monkey play, or mudcore, where they're just like, we're going to go through there and celebrate the death. Next one. And it bothers me because then I don't see it as a long-term game. One-shots, short adventures are fun and all. They don't really excite me as much as a long-term campaign does. When I set out a game and a campaign, I always sit down, we're going to play this adventure, see where it goes, but I'm always like, it's going to keep going. But if players have a mentality of, we're going to die real quick, then that doesn't really translate into good long-term play. So what have I done with Mork Borg? Of course, I'm talking about adding Mork Borg to D&D. Specifically, I did this a couple of years ago, and I'm doing it again now with two different games, one being Swords and Wizardry, and the other one being Castles and Crusades. But I did it with old school essentials, in that Mork Borg, I used it as is, okay, with all of its darkness, and the world is dying and it's a horrible place, but it's not the world we're in. It's the same thing I kind of did with OSE with Rackham Vale. which is something I can talk about as well in a different video. But in Mork Borg, it's basically through portal gates. They go into this, let's call it, I don't want to call it the shadow realm, but the dark, but they go into a different world, into this dimension, into this plane of existence that sucks. It's just horrible. And I then we convert after about, they're trying to figure stuff out. I've already have their player characters, their character sheets. I keep the character sheet copies of my players, just so that I can keep track of certain things and I don't constantly have to ask them for things. And specifically when I'm instituting Mork Borg, I want it so that I can already, because I kind of get a feel for it. Usually they don't just stumble upon these gates or portals, but they're heading towards that direction. I know, okay, it's going to probably be there. And if they interact with it or with an object that portals them there or something like that, I will already have converted their characters to a Mork Borg character as translated as best as possible, because it is a little bit different. It's not one-to-one. There are slight differences, and I adjust it accordingly. And then they figure out they're going to try to do things because they still have their OSE or Swords and Wizardry character sheet in front of them, and they're going to try and do things. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work. You can't do that. You don't have that. You don't have that ability. And then they immediately understand something's not right. They've gone through a portal anyway, so they already know through this gate something's weird. When I describe the landscape, the look, the darkness of the setting, and then quickly they realize I then, of course, unveil, oh, you're in this extra dimension when they start to figure it out. And then I'll just give them their Mork Borg character sheets. But then, of course, it becomes a very deadly game. And it's a race against time because the world is dying. And it keeps dying. It's like cyclical. It dies again and again and again. And their goal is to find the place in the Mork Borg world that they can escape from this and get back to the significantly better, but not safe world, be it with Swords and Wizardry or Old School Essentials or whatever it is that I do this with. So it's kind of that ticking clock, race against time, and now it's about survival. You don't want to die. You want to get out of this place. You're going to interact with people. You're going to find patrons that are going to send you on quests, whether you go with it or not. But some of them could link to other ports that could get you out of here. And that immediately, when I did that a couple times with OSE, I did it once with OSE specifically, and once we kind of alluded to it a little bit. It changed the nature of the campaign. It was like, whoa, this is super dangerous. It made them, same ones who had played Mork Borg before, by the way, a couple of people. They immediately changed how they viewed the game and how they played it. So it wasn't this almost meme-ish, ooh, how horrible am I going to die thing. No, they cared. They wanted to get out of there. So if I head over here to Mork Borg itself, again, Johan Noir and Pelle Nielsen absolutely love this. The Stockholm Cartel, they've made a lot of awesome games out there. It's an awesome game. Definitely go check it out. But I want to go into some specifics here, kind of what I'm talking about as far as the fun but aspect, but then kind of get into what I specifically mentioned in terms of the world and trying to get out. So this is the world map for Mork Borg. So you can see down here is the Endless Sea all the way around it. And it's a little hard to read and see per se. When I had them come in, I would usually have them come out here in the Grift area to then try to get all the way over here to the Valley of the Unfortunate Undead, usually, or the Bergen Crypt. I mean, this is usually where I had a gate here in the Bergen Crypt. I had one in the Valley of the Unfortunate Undead. I did put one in Graven Tosk as well, but they immediately went down here. They understood Galgenbeck was a major city to try to get there, get down to Schleswig, and from there head into here. This was the most likely one, but they could have also gone through the wasteland in the Bergen Crypt as well, and fighting what is there in the world of Mork Borg to get there. So again, here, one of the things is the calendar aspect, kind of these miseries that you activate as the GM. and the psalms that those are related to kind of add a lot to it. So if we look at Psalm 2 here, as at the beginning, so at the end, all manner of fly and wasps shall fill the air. So it's like this triggers something in this horrible world. It adds a horror element to classic D&D without it being Ravenloft. And I'll honestly say, Mork Borg is a lot scarier than Ravenloft. It's grittier than Ravenloft. It's less gothic and way more grunge in its feel. So this really freaked the players out in a good way. In a good way. I know my players, so I'm not worried about any of that, but it definitely got them on their edge as this stuff was happening. They realized this is a bad place. We need to get out of here. We need to survive as well as possible. Now, a couple of them didn't. And what we did then is we created Mork Borg characters that somehow attached to them, and to the party, and the party convinced them. We didn't role play it out dramatically, but that somehow they heard of this party that is looking for a way out, and they realize there is a way out, and they're desperate enough to escape that they attach. And then when they get back to in our case, the old school Essentials world, but I would do it with any of these games, we then converted them to an OSE character. So it definitely does work. Now, granted, if you get a TPK, then so be it. I don't know how we would play that. We didn't encounter that. I would probably play the same way. There's a rumor that there's a way out. Find something on these unfortunate PCs, and then continue with Mork Borg characters that then enter the OSE world and are alien to that one and don't know anything, and you're starting all over there in an exploration sense as well. So it can work. We didn't encounter a TPK, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Now, you can roll for stuff. I actually just had them still have the stuff from Old School Essentials, so this is a part of the character creation that we did not do, but we did translate, or I tried to translate the abilities and hit points and stuff like that. Used kind of the same hit points, but the abilities we did change. You can see here the femur. If they had like a dagger, I actually would change it to a femur because it's a D4. A staff would be, or a knife, short sword, warhammer, bow, sword. So I did as best I could, either translate it, convert it into something different, and then they lost what they had before, and now they get this. They had a couple of magic items, and I allowed the magic to work-ish. I did alter it at times because it's a different dimension, so things are just not quite the same. So let's talk about abilities here. We've got agility, presence, strength, and toughness. So if we look at agility, it's defend, balance, swim, flee. So here I would just do dexterity, presence, perceive, aim, charm, wield powers. Yeah, I would use wisdom, intelligence, and charisma and kind of bundle it into presence. Strength was, well, strength, toughness, constitution. So we kind of stuck with that. The ability bonuses, basically the same as an OSE. So it translated pretty quickly overall. But of course, the way you roll tests and stuff like that are different from OSE. And we just played Mork Borg. The good thing is there are certain things that carry over in the sense of you've got reaction rolls. You also have morale rolls for enemies. So you as the GM or referee, you have to make some adjustments to pull this off, but there's still a lot of similarities because it's all classic D&D based. At least as inspiration, it's still a D20 game. Mork Borg is no different than that. And yes, I know I have said Mork Borg, Mork Borg, Mork Borg, whatever you want to call it, it'll work. So what I would do for some of the spellcasters, I looked at the scrolls, and I would give them a few scrolls. So because their spells wouldn't really work if they had magic items that had magic in it. Tried to see what would fit best and give that to them because it's an alteration of what they have. And again, this really threw them for a loop, but they understood, okay, different dimension. Magic doesn't work here quite like it did in our dimension, on our plane, and they rolled with it. Of course, you've got a lot of awesome monsters and enemies in Mork Borg that your player characters can interact with. that really give them a sense of darkness and terror and horror. The troll looks awesome. To me, the one that really freaks me out is the lady porcelain, because that's just creepy. Now, one thing I did do, I put in this Rot Black Sludge, or the Shadow King's Lost Heir, as an introductory dungeon crawl for Mork Borg. Now, the characters were, I think, level 3 or level 4 at that time. So, they were a little bit more buff, but this kind of introduced them to the game a little bit, and they came out of this and then into the world. It it had a huge horror effect in that I was kind of hoping for, this dark dimension, and they really latched onto it. So the good thing is this does come with the core rule book, and I recommend that this would be one that you play through. You could even have this right off the bat with first or second level OSE or Swords and Wizardry characters. They somehow get into this, and you start off with a regular small little dungeon crawl. If I go to the page itself, you can see here it's not a huge dungeon crawl by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a good way to start. And you can kind of start maybe with, they start one level in OSE and then go to a new level, and without knowing, they've shifted into the Mork Borg world, and now you continue with this intro adventure, and it really adds something to it, because then it'll really throw them, and then it becomes an epic adventure rather than just kind of that horror feel dark portal that I had in mind, but you're turning it into an epic adventure and campaign. And who knows, maybe, because again, I mentioned this before, in my version of Mork Borg, if I would just run it, I would actually say there is hope, and this hopelessness is created and not real. So you could go that way, but again, I think Mork Borg works great as this kind of Ravenloft type world. So there you have it. Add a little darkness to your classic D&D games, OSE, Swords and Wizardry, Castles and Crusades, Labyrinth Lord, Knave, you name it. Throw in Mork Borg. This could be the ultimate Ravenloft replacement in a darker, more horrific version, in my opinion. Having played original Ravenloft, this definitely makes it even creepier. In that sense, and especially if your players, they're good old school D&D players, they understand the principles of it, they've played some OSE or BX or AD&D, but they don't really know Mork Borg. I recommend that approach. I recommend getting this game anyway, just because it's an awesome book to have. There are a lot of cool random tables in here and general ideas. I've stolen monsters out of here to just throw into specifically OD&D and Swords and Wizardry games. So, and Knave as well. So yeah, definitely I recommend Mork Borg, especially if you're going to supplement it. So again, fun, but you need to be understand how to use it and what you're getting yourself into. But that's one way I think Mork Borg can be utilized in a way beyond just a standalone product. So if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're new. Check the description down below for how to support me and my work as I design more RPG stuff. So there's Patreon down there, and buy me a coffee as well. So until next time, I'm Realm Builder Guy, and I will talk to you soon.